Hey everybody, Mike Mill with the Herald Times, Andy Graham. We're here at a very rainy, very cold, very damp Michigan Stadium. Feels like fall, Andy.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, the football weather.
It was indeed. Indiana lost this one 63-47. A lot going on in this one. Crazy afternoon here in Ann Arbor. Indiana gave up 750 yards of offense, but then again, they actually had 572, which is nice. And then you realize, they got outgained by about 200 some yards. This was just another forgettable defensive effort by Indiana, who just it seemed all afternoon they couldn't get that big stop. Well, they did get a couple big stops, but it just on and on, on and on. They just could not stop Michigan today.
Yeah, I mean, it was a case where I think that it's one of those things where if you score 47 points on the road, generally you should win the game. I mean, that's even in modern football, even with the amount of points being scored right now, that's generally enough. But what happens in games like this, eventually the offenses start making a few mistakes because they're pressing. They feel tremendous pressure to try and score a touchdown every single possession, or they're just not going to keep up with the other side. We saw, a Michigan fumble, an Indiana interception. Eventually, that starts happening. But you have to give some credit to the offenses here. I mean, Devin Gardner's a really talented guy, and Indiana obviously can deploy a lot of talent on that side of the ball. But let's face it, I mean, neither side can go away from this game feeling very good about what's happening on the defensive side of the ball.
Not at all.
And they need to get it fixed, both of them. I mean, Michigan's 6-1; they're already bowl eligible. But if they want to do the kind of thing that Michigan tends to want to do, win a major bowl at the end of the season, they're going to have to get it fixed. And if Indiana's going to do what it wants to do, they're going to have to get it fixed. And they're going into a bye week now, the second and last bye week of the season, heading into what is now a very big homecoming game with Minnesota on November 2nd. Minnesota, an upset winner today at Northwestern.
That game looks a lot tougher now, and especially when you look at these three home games. We'll maybe get into this a little bit later, but when you look at those three home games left, which Indiana probably, they do have to win out to become bowl eligible. That's probably their best shot. We were looking at that Illinois game as probably the one that was their big must win. But now you look at this Minnesota game coming up in 2 weeks. That's a big one.
Yeah, they're all. I mean, basically, yeah, they have to run the table at home. The chances of pulling off an upset at Wisconsin or Ohio State are pretty daunting. Let's face it, the way those two teams have played. Although Iowa went into gave OSU a game today, I haven't seen all of that, but Iowa was either ahead or competitive for a lot of that game. But those are once again with Ohio State. The way Ohio State's played on offense most of the season, I mean, and the way Wisconsin runs the ball, it's hard to imagine Indiana once again being able to stay with them in terms of just scoring points. It might look a lot like today's game looked. Even if Indiana's offense plays well, it's going to have to score a lot of points. Kofi Hughes was talking after the game, and he tried to take some bullets for his defensive brethren, and he said, look, if the other team scores 100, our job is to score 101. I mean, it's a team game, and you win and lose as a team. And that's true. It's a very noble sentiment on Kofi's part, but it really doesn't stand scrutiny because he made some plays and his offensive teammates made some plays that were game-winning plays.
Yeah.
They came up big time and time again, and the defense just has to start doing the same, or Indiana's not going to get to where it needs to get. They have to rise up and make plays. I mean, they're not going to stop anybody all the time, but they need to stop people often enough, and they need to. How many times today did Indiana score and get back within 2 points, 3 points, or whatnot? And if the defense rises up and gets a stop, then maybe Indiana can get the momentum and go on and win the game. But no, Michigan would come down and score in 3 plays, 5 plays, 4 plays, whatever.
Right.
Every time it seemed like that needed to happen, it just didn't. And I don't know. I mean, I think that it's getting to a point now where during Kevin Wilson's tenure, and this goes back to the 1-11 season, Indiana's given up 40 or more points in 15 of the 31 games. And even though Indiana's going to play a lot of high-scoring games because of the mode of offense it employs, that just really isn't sustainable. You can't give up 40 points half the time, and you can't give up over 50 or more points, almost a fourth of the time, because that's 7 out of the 31.
Right.
And that's just not sustainable if you want to get to where you want to get in terms of Indiana's program goals.
we got to talk about Michigan for a second because it was a record-setting day for the Wolverines. They've been playing football here at Michigan for about 134 years, I think, but this one will go down in the record books as one to remember.
Yeah.
Jeremy Gallen played out of his mind, 369 receiving yards. That's a school record.
Big Ten record.
Big
too.
Ten record, too. I think we had all-purpose yards here for
Devin Gardner.
Devin Gardner. He was, what was it?
That was a school record. It was a school record of total yardage for Michigan.
It was, yeah. I think it was 750 some yards. I mean,
right.
it was just a dominating thing. And like you said, Indiana they played well enough offensively to win this game. They scored 40 some points here on the road for 109,000 people. They did what they had to do, and yet again, continuous kick to the guts. When Michigan gets the ball back, they couldn't. They had no answers.
Well, that's right. Another thing Kofi said that he was right about is that he said we kind of lost our mojo after that first drive in the first half, and that's true. Indiana's offense didn't produce a lot, from like about then to about midway through the second quarter kind of stuff. But then they found it again, and they found it well enough and often enough after that to win a game. I mean, Indiana was in position to win this game. Even as much as the defense struggled, Indiana could have won. And the offense pretty much did everything it could to win the game. Although, once again, and Kofi brought this up too, he said when Michigan fumbled on the Indiana one, and Indiana's got the ball, and they're down by less than a touchdown, and there's about half of the fourth quarter left, and you could eat up some clock and go down and score and maybe win the game. Indiana throws an interception there and really allows Michigan to clinch the game. So that was on the offense. I mean, it wasn't like it was all on the defense, but look, we've seen this so many times. I mean, we had a colleague just give us a call right before we shot this video and said that was so Indiana, and it was. This game personifies how Indiana has played when it's had trouble in the Wilson era. They've gotten good enough offensively to beat people. Defensively, they're not good enough to beat people yet.
Mm-hmm.
Not good teams, and that's what has to change. I mean, they have to get good enough defensively to be able to hang in there and get just enough stops so that the offense can go ahead and win the game.
And that's the thing that I think might hurt the most, because there were a couple moments here in the second half where 109,000 people just got quiet.
Mm-hmm.
There was that 67-yard touchdown pass, I think it was Kofi.
Well, he was making a fantastic play.
There were so many momentum swings in Indiana's favor, and just to see them sort of just squander them away, it's just it's just deflating, and it is what it is. It's Indiana football. It's the Indiana football that they've come to be known for decades.
Well, and look, I mean, as I said, when Kevin got here, they went 1-11. It was a major rebuilding job, but he was an offensive guy, and I think everybody kind of thought that he's going to get the offense going here pretty quickly. And there was some talent on that side of the ball. These kids have bought in. I mean, they're playing hard. I mean, that's not really an issue, I don't think. But there have to be some answers on the defensive side. I mean, there just have to be. And really, I asked Kevin during the press conference, I said, hey, you're watching this unfold. I mean, Michigan had school and conference records by the end of the third quarter today. I mean, as you're watching that, was there anything you thought that could be done that, and I'm sure you tried? And he said, yeah, look, I mean, when we played base, they worked us, which means they schemed us. And when we were really aggressive, we didn't get home. And by that he meant the blitzes didn't get home. The blitzes didn't work. And he's right. It didn't work. But at some point they have to arrive at a place where they have things that they can do in the course of a game that can give them a chance, that can work well enough to change the dynamic of the game a little bit.
Yeah.
They have to have packages, or they have to have approaches, or they have to have players they can go to that could change the dynamic of a game that's unfolding like this one did today.
You look at the quarterbacks today. Roberson came in early in the second quarter and really gave them the shot in the foot that they really needed.
Shot in the foot?
Shot in the arm. It's been a long day.
It's a long day.
So many points.
I think we just shot ourselves in the foot.
I think that's what we did. But he gave him that sort of surge, that sort of spike. He came in the second drive, he led him on a touchdown run. It really seemed like, second half, he really picked it up. And, there was, like I said, there was clear momentum. What'd you see out of Trey today, real quick before we sign off? What'd you see from him after he came in?
Well, kind of what we saw last week, too. I mean, he looks like he's back to being the kind of Trey that we saw play really well, even late in his freshman year and then before he got hurt last year. I didn't think Nate played poorly. I thought Nate played okay. I didn't really have many issues with how he was playing. But, the ball slipped out of his hand a couple of times, and I think they just felt like, well, let's see how Trey does. Trey was a bit fortunate in one sense. He threw what should have been a pick six, but the Michigan guy dropped it,
Right.
and then Indiana went down and scored on that drive, and that kind of helped him, I think, generate some momentum. So this is an ongoing thing where we'll just deal with it as it goes and see what. But whatever the answer ends up being, a quarterback on a given game or for the balance of the season, that's not Indiana's problem. They'll get pretty good quarterback play.
Right. I don't think that's a concern at this point. Bye week's coming up. Minnesota in 2 weeks. Going to be a fun stretch.
They can still do what they want to do.
They still can.
They still can, and they're still capable of it, but they got to get some defensive answers.
That's the key. We'll see what happens. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks.